There's this powerful idea that understanding the law isn't just for lawyers. It's actually a tool, an essential tool that can empower every single one of us to help build fairer, more just communities.
Think of it this way. Legal knowledge is kind of like a seed. When you plant it in one person, it can grow into a force that actually strengthens their whole community, helping people solve problems peacefully and build a society where everyone's rights are respected. Right, but here's the thing. It's one thing to read about a law in some dusty old textbook, but it's a completely different thing to understand how it actually works out in the real world. So how do we close that gap between theory and, practical, life-changing knowledge?
Well, that's where this comes in. The key is an approach that's active. It's engaging. We're going to dive into how learning by doing takes the law off the page and puts its power directly into people's hands.
Okay, first things first. To really appreciate the solution, we've got to understand the scale of the problem. Why is this kind of education so desperately needed right now, all across the globe?
Let's just start with this one. Staggering number, 1.1 billion. That's how many people around the world don't have a legal ID. It's a figure so massive, it's hard to even wrap your head around. And it represents this huge, invisible wall blocking people from basic justice.
So what does that actually mean for a person? Well, without a legal identity, you can be completely locked out of education, healthcare, and even the legal system itself. It's a fundamental roadblock that stops people from being able to fully participate in society.
And this is the answer. It's called law-related education, or LRE for short. It's basically a whole field dedicated to giving people the tools they need to understand their rights, navigate the justice system, and become active participants in how they're governed.
But here's the really crucial part. It's all about how it's taught. The best programs aren't about memorizing a bunch of facts. They're about active, hands-on experience. Let's see how this is really taking hold.
And you can see this approach is really catching on. What's so interesting here is the clear upward trend. A decade ago, just over half of countries had some form of this in their schools. By 2025, that's projected to hit 70%. That's a massive global shift. And what's driving this change? Well, it's these super innovative programs. You've got street law, which brings legal concepts to life for millions of students. And then there's iCivics, which uses these awesome online games to make complex legal ideas accessible and, believe it or not, actually fun.
To really get a feel for the power of this interactive approach, let's zoom in on one of its most effective tools, the mock trial. We're going to break down exactly how an exercise like this completely transforms students. This just lays it out so perfectly. It all starts with critical thinking as students really dig into the facts of a case. Then they build empathy by literally stepping into the shoes of a lawyer or a witness. After that, they learn to collaborate as they build their arguments together as a team. And finally, they experience the real gravity of justice by reaching a verdict. You see, each step builds a different but totally vital skill. And you have to understand, this is so much more than just a class project. The skills they learn here, empathy, teamwork, critical analysis, they don't just stay in the classroom. They become the fundamental building blocks for being an active citizen in a democracy. And the impact doesn't just stop with the student when the bell rings. It creates these real, tangible ripples that spread from the classroom out into the whole community. And the data absolutely backs this up. Just look at the impact of a tool like iCivics. We're seeing students who use the platform showing a 20% boost in their legal knowledge. That is direct, measurable empowerment right there. All right, now check out this next number, because it might surprise you. 25%. What could that possibly be? That's the reduction in bullying that schools see when they have strong law-related education programs. How is that possible? Well, it's because these programs don't just teach laws. They teach things like conflict resolution, empathy, and respect for other people's perspectives. They build those core social and emotional skills that can totally transform a school's culture for the better. So the progress is clear and the benefits are proven. But the work is far from over. There are still some pretty significant hurdles to overcome on the path to justice for all. This slide lays out the path forward so clearly. The hurdles are huge, right? From funding cuts to that massive number of people who still lack a legal ID. But the solutions, the levers we can pull, are just as clear and totally actionable, using technology, empowering communities directly, and expanding these programs in our schools.
And seeing all this really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question. This isn't just some big global issue for governments to solve. It's something we can influence right where we live. So what role can you play?
And look, here are some real concrete ways to get involved. You could help start a mock trial club, you could organize or even just attend a community legal workshop to help spread this knowledge. Or you can speak up and advocate for more funding and support for these vital programs. Every single action, no matter how big or small, helps build a world where knowing your rights isn't a privilege, but a reality for everyone.